A very warm welcome, art lovers, to Art Gallery Explorer, the vlog that takes you inside galleries and exhibition spaces across London, the southeast of England and beyond. Hey, we're heading to this place, the magnificent National Gallery here in London, to explore an exhibition called Degas and Miss Lala. This is going to be a small free exhibition, which I have not read much about beyond the fact I think it's going to be on the very famous Degas painting, clearly from the title. So come and join me as we head inside. This show has two stars, Degas obviously, but also Anna Albertine Olga Brown, an acrobat who was born in Prussia to a white mother and an African-American father. Degas came to know Olga Brown, whose stage name was Miss Lala, at the newly built Cirque Fernando in Paris. By this time, Lala was an international star, and Degas painted this painting, Miss Lala at the Cirque Fernando, one of the National Gallery's most exhilarating and modern paintings, in 1879. This exhibition explores how this painting came to be produced. In the first section, we focus on Olga Brown. Olga Brown had been performing across Europe from the age of 10. She performed solo or with her stage partner Kyra or as the headliner of her troupe. And the display of posters in this first section testified to Olga Brown's popularity. And I also found it really refreshing to see these eye-catching, populist, colourful, dramatic posters being given the status of art in this temple of high art at the National Gallery. We also have to acknowledge that some of the images focused on the perceived otherness of Miss Lala as a black woman in a predominantly white Europe as a selling point, and some of the images are sadly caricatures or overtly racialized in a way which the modern viewer will find disturbing. We also see some photos which remind us of the multiple roles that Olga Brown, Miss Lala, had. She was a businesswoman and a manager, and a very successful one at that, but also a wife and a mother with a personal life. And as we get closer to Degas' great painting, we're taken to the Paris of the 1870s, where circuses were all the rage. Cirque Fernando was managed by a Belgian, and that's where it got its name from, and was Paris's seventh permanent circus. It's no surprise, considering the drama and colour that existed within this world, that they attracted artists, and artists were given free access to rehearsals where they could sketch and explore and be inspired. Renoir, Seurat, Toulouse-Lautrec, and Picasso were all attracted to the circus as a inspiration for important works. And so it's no surprise that Degas, whose studio was a few blocks away from the Cirque Fernando, became fascinated himself. And we finally see our first work by Degas, a lithograph heightened with pastels of the Cirque Fernando, a relatively minor work, but an aperitif for what's to come. The heart of the show explores how Miss Lala at the Cirque Fernando evolved. We see him flirting with painting Miss Olga Brown's ring partner, before he turned his attention firmly to Miss Lala herself. He wanted to show one of the most dramatic moments of her act, where she's raised to the roof of the circus, suspended by a rope attached to a bit clenched between her teeth. He invited her to his studio and used props to help aid his creative process. He required her to hold a pose for a long time as he worked on details of different bits of her body. This sheet is squared up to transfer the design onto canvas. We know that Degas struggled with the domed interior of the circus and found it difficult to attempt to place Miss Lala within the architecture of the space. His first attempt, which you can see here, showed more of the architecture and interior than his final version. And it was rumoured that he actually asked an architect to help him. You can see here the rulers, see him really trying to plan it out, ruled lines, see him really trying to plan it out.
After all these preparatory works, the final painting is still so dramatic and unusually modern that it captivates. The position that Degas paints from explores the vertiginous nature and sheer danger of Olga Brown's act as Miss Lala and how dramatic it must have seemed. We're reminded that actually Degas painted this picture of Miss Olga after he painted the final vision, so it was still an image in his mind. And we also seen a grimoire from the Art Institute of Chicago, which reminds us what a draw the Cirque Fernando was for the Impressionist world. We're then drawn back to the fact that Miss Lala, Olga Brown, was a black woman, an unusual subject for Degas. And we're reminded that through a series of small works, that Degas was actually born of a Creole mother of European descent from New Orleans and had some mixed heritage relatives on his mother's side. He'd actually visited New Orleans in 1872, before the painting was created, staying with his late mother's family. This was in the chaotic period of Reconstruction after the American Civil War, where Degas both saw and was impacted by the large black population, but also was staying with white cotton merchants who had been previously tied to the slave economy. The exhibition argues that his portrayal of skin tone and colour was changed by his visit to New Orleans in the deep south of the United States. It's crazy to think that despite being displayed at the fourth Impressionist exhibition, this spectacular painting received little interest and did not sell. It stayed in Degas' studio for over 25 years. He then exhibited outside of France and it was eventually bought by a Canadian billionaire. He spent 20 or so years in Toronto before the National Gallery in London bought it in 1925. And it being free and accessible to everyone meant that it influenced, according to the exhibition, many British artists who were inspired by both the drama of the painting and the subject matter of the circus. And it's been in the National's collection now for 99 years.
Really hope you enjoyed that exploration there. It was brilliant to explore another fabulous freebie from the National Gallery. Really enjoyed that. As always, I think about the good, the bad, and the beautiful. And the good was undoubtedly seeing Degas struggle to create this masterwork, Miss Lala, through some sketches and drawings that have been bought from all over the world to London. And that was a real treat. I love seeing that artistic development towards a masterpiece. It reminds us of how much work goes into these works, and it was a real art history treat to see these brought together massively. I also really enjoyed the build-up to the Miss Lala section with the posters, which are really unusual to see at the National Gallery, so that was fantastic.
I also should say I really enjoyed the staging of the show in the Sunley Room with this intimate circular inner sanctum and then a little bit outside as well. It made it a really calm place to see some beautiful art.
In terms of the bad, I thought, although there was nothing terrible about this show, it was a really wonderfully paced show. I did think that it lost a bit of power after the Miss Lala section. The Degas and the Black World was interesting, but I thought we were clutching at straws a little bit with the afterlife of the painting. I wasn't so convinced that all these works were directly linked to Degas, but then obviously I trust the National Gallery's curation on that. But that's a minor quibble for what was a really good free exhibition. And the beautiful was clearly the Miss Lala painting itself. This is a really good free show. It's probably not big enough to sort of worthy of travelling miles and miles to, but if you're in London, absolutely go and see it. It's fantastic. It's on until the 1st of September. And I just love the way that the National Gallery are producing these fantastic free shows. It reminded me a little bit of the Sir Francis of Assisi one in depth. Thank you very much for watching. Do comment and do subscribe to the vlog for many more really fantastic upcoming shows.